To the show, Natalie.
Happy to be here.
Long
Excited.
time no see. Now I'm just um we met almost a year ago now because December 5th is my clean date, and I started coming to our meeting like 2 weeks into that. So it's been like 11 months now that we've known each other. And my favorite question that I always start off with at every episode of this show is, what is your clean date? And I happen to know because it's my birthday. Go ahead. What is your clean date, Natalie?
9/29/2024.
There it is. Yep.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
You're the
Um,
only person I've ever met with the clean date on my birthday. And of course, like we end up becoming good friends. And I just think it's so funny every time I see your name on the screen with
with your birthday.
9/29 on my
Yeah.
date of birth. Yeah. It's just so funny to see. So what was going on for you then 9/28 of 2024? Like, what was the reason that was your last day of using?
Well, I had at that point been wanting to get clean for a while because I was using against my will. I was sick of it. It had started as like kind of a fun like party thing that I would do when I was like out with other people, but by the time we got anywhere near my clean date, it was me fully isolated using alone. Like my boyfriend at the time, who's now my fiance, was physically there, but he didn't use like I did. So it was just me pretty much doing this by myself. What I was addicted to, ketamine.
I was gonna say, yeah, we're not in a meeting now. We can say the names.
Yeah, so I was using and it was really just ketamine. I wasn't using anything else because I had gotten bored of all like softer substances than that.
Yeah,
And anything harder I was afraid would kill me. So I had drawn like a hard line of like only doing that.
yeah.
Then I was still testing it because I was afraid I could die that way. So it definitely was real, but the use had gotten to a point where I was doing like almost 3.5 grams a day. And
Is
it
that a
was,
lot for ketamine? Because like ketamine
yes,
is one of the few that I haven't. I feel like ketamine got bigger. It wasn't really ever big in my area, but I feel like it got more popular around the time of when I stopped doing street drugs, which was 2018.
yes. So it's gotten very popular, especially in the electronic dance music community. So
Oh, okay.
how I was introduced to it. Like it's kind of almost replaced like the
Ecstasy.
Molly ecstasy type things as being like the really poppin' like fashionable drug. And I guess you could say like a lot of people in LA use this drug. Everyone knows what happened to Matthew Perry. There are a
Yeah.
lot of people, that made big news. And that was one of my first wake up calls because one of my justifications for using it was that I didn't think it could kill me.
Yeah.
And it obviously, killed him. So that was when I was starting to wake up and be like, okay, I at least can't mix this with other substances because when you mix it with alcohol, it gets really dangerous. So I had at least that boundary. But by the end of my using, I was using pretty much all day, every day, just sitting in my apartment doing it. And the way my rock bottom came about, which I'm thankful for now, but at the time was like the worst day of my life, was I'm pretty sure my boyfriend like misplaced my stash and
Hmm.
I was yelling at him like really, really angry and also engaging in like self harm. So he called the cops on me
Okay.
and they didn't really understand what was going on. So they thought it was domestic violence. So obviously, like, that's not what happened. There's no charges of that. Like, that's just what they coming in, seeing thought I was the aggressor as well, which is hilarious if you know, like, the size difference between me and my boyfriend. He's literally like 300 pounds. So it would be crazy if I was able to hurt him. And especially at the end of my using, I was like really skinny. I was like probably 110 pounds. So that just really shows you a lot about my state of mind, right? If they thought an 110-pound woman was the aggressor, I must have really been
On
whacked out.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on one. So I got taken away because they have this law in California, because so many deaths happen, unfortunately, due to domestic violence, that they have to take someone away to like de-escalate the situation, even though we weren't really fighting with each other or being violent towards each other. We were just arguing about drugs, but we weren't going to tell the police like we were arguing about drugs, which I still think is good because I didn't get any like drug charges or anything like
Yeah.
that. But I remember I knew the jig was up, and I had been kind of like hoping for something like that to happen. Obviously not on that scale, but I was hoping for some way to get help. And I remember thinking like I'm in jail for the first time in my life. Um, and I feel relieved. Like I remember staring at the phone, because all you have in a jail cell is just like that one phone that you have to like manually dial, like that OG ass phone
Yep.
that you have to dial the numbers into. And I remember thinking like, I'm actually relieved the jig is up. Like this could be my kind of excuse to,
Push in the right direction.
yeah, like it was actually what it took for me to finally stop. Like me being pulled out of my apartment, having my phone taken away from me, and just getting to reflect on like where my life had gotten to at that point. And I really wanted to get clean. And if they had released me back to my apartment when my parents had bailed me out, my parents had no idea like the extent of my drug use, because I hid it really well and I paid for it all myself. So they never knew. So they thought it was just like a misunderstanding and bailed me out of jail. But again, like I think my higher power intervened, because I had evidence of self harm on a wrist. They can't release you back to your apartment without a 72-hour hold. So
Yeah.
my whole like rehab experience really was that 72-hour hold, because very quickly they realized like it wasn't schizophrenia or like a psychological issue that was causing self-harm. It was substance abuse. And there was a really nice lady doing H&I, and she kind of explained to me, this was when I found out I was an addict, because I didn't know, on that 72-hour hold, which didn't even last 72 hours because they didn't have like a lot of space. And as soon as they realized I didn't want to use anymore, they were kind of like, okay, you got what you needed out of this.
Yeah, let's get her out of here. Let's get her back.
Yeah,
Get a bed over for
because
somebody else who needs it.
yeah, exactly. Like it was a state-run facility. It wasn't like something nice or like something that my parents had paid for. It was like
Yeah. I've been
where,
to the state run. Yeah, I've been to the
yeah,
state
it
run
was,
one where the homeless people
and
go to out of the fucking winter.
yeah, you don't want to stay a long time in there, because there are people suffering from like violent attacks of mental illness. And as much as I don't like not have compassion for those people, being in a very small room with them is scary.
Yeah.
And I was really happy when I got to leave. So I was like, I finally told my mom, I was like, I'm an addict and I really want to stay clean. So she helped me find a addiction specialist, like a talk therapist within my health insurance, that I started talking to. And that was kind of like my initial guide into NA, and the person that helped me find meetings in my area. The first like 30 days of staying clean were really hard, because I still had like the desire badly to use. I even remember telling like the people in the hospital, like, when I get out of here, I'm gonna do so much drugs, like,
Yeah.
and really not knowing I was done. But having like resources already established helped me. And by the time I was like on my own, like by the time my mom had left, the idea of using again didn't seem worth it. because I had worked so hard to like finally climb out of this hole of using against my will that I was like, it hasn't been tempting to me for a long time.
Are there, I'm sure there's some kind of withdrawals. Are they more psychological or more physical or
It's
both?
what had happened to me was I was so addicted to being in a disassociative state that the normal stimuli of the real world, like life on life's terms, was kind of like being boiled alive in hot water. That's what it felt like. Like it was extremely uncomfortable to function psychologically without that drug. And I don't think many people probably understand that. And that's good because, like, in order to understand that, you have to go really, really deep into the addiction of it.
Yeah.
But there were no physical symptoms.
Okay.
Physically, you almost immediately feel better because it's very hard on your bladder and kidneys and like that whole part of your body. So I almost immediately felt better physically, but mentally, I think I'm still adjusting even after
Okay.
over a year.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now, let's no wait. I have a question, and then we'll rewind because you said 3.5 grams worth. I thought ketamine was in pills, grams. What? How do? What is ketamine? Like, is it a pill?
No, I think it can be a pill, but though that's more like the doctor patient side of things. Like I think you
Yeah,
can get it in a pill for mental health, but
yeah. That's what I was imagining.
I wasn't going through a legal avenue. I was going through a dude that just had bags and bags and bags of it. And there's two types of it. There's like R type ketamine and S type ketamine, and they look a little different. Like one's chunkier and one's shardier, but they both are just like this white crystallized substance that
Okay,
kind of it looks a little bit like Coke, but it's a
okay,
little bit more of a pronounced like shardiness to it.
okay. All right. I was curious just because when I think of ketamine, I think of pills. So I wasn't sure. So that makes sense if you're just buying a powder. That's crazy that what's out there these days. All right, rewind. You're from New England?
Yes, born and raised in Connecticut, and my dad's worked in Manhattan my whole life. And I was born, and my parents lived in an apartment, but they've lived in the same house my whole life. So then they
Oh wow,
still,
so,
yeah,
uh,
same
you- you-
house, still live in it.
that's crazy that they lived in a house for over 30 years. Then
Yep. It's definitely changed a lot. Like when we first bought it, it was really small, didn't have a pool, like it's unrecognizable. But yeah, we've lived on the same property since my brother was born and he's 29. So
wow, that
it's been a
was
minute.
so that was my next question is siblings. You just have a brother?
Yeah, just a brother, and he's normal. Obviously, this whole situation has led him to question if he's an addict or not,
Yeah,
which
that
I
happened with
think
my
is
family too.
I think it's healthy, like
Yeah,
to just be aware of the fact that it could affect you. But we've talked about it extensively. we've
yeah,
decided that he falls into the normal.
yeah. Is he older or younger?
He's actually younger, and luckily because of well, not luckily for me, but luckily for him, he was able to really learn by example. So he's always, I mean, I'm not going to say he's always drank moderately. He like went to Arizona State University.
Yeah,
Like he definitely had his times, but in a very normal way compared to what
yeah,
I've gone through. I raised him right. He doesn't mess with pills or powders, and I'm proud of that.
yeah.
Because
I would.
I had to
Yeah,
go through that.
yeah. I'm the same way with my brother and sister, where they learn from my mistakes. You know what I mean? Because I'm 3 years older than my brother and 9 years older than my sister.
Yeah,
So
same. I'm 3 years older than my brother, so he was aware enough that I was
yeah,
kind of like putting my parents through hell with what I was doing in high
yeah,
school. That he stayed away from it. And that led to him getting a full scholarship to college, graduating, and, starting the job that he still works. So,
Yeah. And Arizona State, that is a party school.
yes.
Arizona State is a party school.
Started at Colorado College, and then his best friend went to Arizona State, so they ended up like doing a year together. And
Oh, okay.
yeah,
That's cool.
it was definitely wild, but that's probably, the extent of
Yeah.
how crazy his life's ever been.
Most people, they go crazy in college. So growing up, you grew up pretty much in the same place, parents still together to this day?
Yeah, which is really amazing. Not that they've ever had problems that it's
Yeah.
amazing, but just statistically, people
Yeah.
being married for almost 40 years through 2 kids and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely each other's people.
Yeah.
And my dad is, I think, more where the addict gene comes from, and he's admitted, like, he said, I have an issue with moderation, which is as close as he'll admit to
Yeah.
addict tendencies. But my mom is the most aggressively normal, bless her heart, woman that I've ever met. So
Yeah. And you and I, we had the same kind of thing. Our parents were together for, almost 40 years by the time my dad passed. Like, it wasn't even like, there obviously there was the, regular stuff of being in a marriage for a long time and having kids and, the occasional disagreement. But I never had to witness anything traumatic with my parents or,
yeah, I want to give them credit that, like, how a lot of people that suffer with addiction, it can
yeah,
be directly correlated to some sort of incident. There was no inciting incident in
yeah,
my life with them,
yep, same
especially.
here.
Like, even my grandparents are stable. I did have one aunt though that kind of showed addictive tendencies. And when I say kind of showed addictive tendencies, I mean like crack, alcohol. She's passed away now, unfortunately, because when you do certain substances for certain amounts of time, it shortens your lifespan, which
Yeah,
is something that I learned from her. And that's why I never touched some super hard stuff,
yeah,
because growing up, my family was always trying to put her in rehab or like get her help, and she kind of never really took to it, unfortunately.
yeah, yeah. That'll happen, and it's I have, just I have a cousin, me and him both deal with the same kind of stuff, and that's life. But so and growing up, what was that like? Friends, do you still have friends to this day that you grew up with? Like, what was school like for you growing up?
School was honestly awesome because even though I'm dyslexic, they had really good special ed in the public schools that I grew up in, because the taxes are so high in that
Yeah,
area that it makes the public school like amazing.
yeah,
So as soon as they figured out I couldn't read, which was hilarious because I was memorizing books, because I have a really good auditory processing, so I could memorize the books my mom read me, and then I
mm.
would read them to the class. But one day I held the book upside down, so that kind of like gave it away. But once I learned to read, I was really like a good academic student, and I went
Yeah,
from like special ed to gifted, which was a crazy glow up in elementary school,
yeah,
honestly. But yeah, school always went really well for me. That was the place where I excelled, and I got a lot
okay,
of joy out of it. Until, high school and higher education, when drugs got in the way of school being awesome.
yeah, because I think we had talked, maybe we have. So like my introduction to alcohol was at 11 out of curiosity, not because of, anything other than curiosity, where I went to my parents' basement. They used to throw parties, but they weren't really big drinkers. And they had leftover alcohol and they stored it in the basement, and I would steal it and drink it. But they were never like drinking the leftover alcohol. They would just store it in the basement and buy more the next time they threw a party.
I
And
actually recently asked my parents about why there was so much alcohol in our basement, and they said, I wouldn't remember this, and I didn't, but they had a really sweet Y2K party. because like they were adults, so everyone was panicking over Y2K. So my dad had like this elaborate like Y2K theme kind of celebration. Like we're all gonna either like live or die together,
Yeah.
basically. And that's where that kind of started. And then when Y2K didn't happen, they kept having parties.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you were like 6, 7 during Y2K.
Yes, and I remember I was at my neighbor's house because my neighbors were our best like childhood friends, and the
Mm.
babysitter had to take us over there because it was so wild. But that alcohol is literally still in the basement of the Connecticut house. Like there's still bottles because it's like surplus, party bar alcohol, and
Yeah,
and even my dad, who is probably, an alcoholic, he'll never get through all of it. So it just kind of sits there.
yeah.
And that's how I
Yeah,
spend my
I blacked out Y2K. I was definitely blacked out at my house. That was a crazy night.
I
I
think it was
definitely blacked.
crazy for my parents too, honestly.
Yeah, I was 13 during Y2K. That I was in 8th grade, 7th grade. I was in 7th grade. Shit, was it? What grade was I in? I was 13. I was 15 for freshman year, 14. Yeah, I was 13 for Y2K. Holy shit.
Were
I
you
remember.
aware of like what was going
Oh,
on?
100%. Yeah,
I
I
was
mean,
gonna say
yeah,
I'm really glad I wasn't aware of what was going on
yeah.
because I get
You know,
anxiety.
because
And
it's middle school for us. You know what I mean? We were in
yeah,
middle school. We were in 7th grade. So, like, and we were on computers. We were taking, typing classes and, using Mavis Beacon. You know what I mean? I don't know if you use Mavis Beacon to learn how to type, but we did. It showed you the home row keys and you put the mat over the fucking keyboard. Like, I remember all that shit. But yeah, I'm very well aware of what was happening during Y2K. Like I'm 39. I'll be, I just turned 39, obviously, when you turned
yeah.
1 year. But yeah, I definitely remember Y2K. I mean, I blacked out, but I remember like what was going on and what could potentially happen.
The discourse leading up to
Yeah,
it, the news
exactly. Yeah.
coverage. My parents were very good at like keeping us away from news coverage because my grandma is bipolar 1 and it like the news cycle really spins her out. So my
Mhm.
parents like never let us watch it, which
Okay.
I think was good because it helped my stress stay down when I was a kid. Like they did a
Yeah.
good job not showing us anything.
Yeah, for me, what I remember from Y2K that night was watching. I used to watch the MTV when they played music videos back then. Every year they would do the best music videos of the year, and it would be a New Year's Eve party while they would show the best music videos of the year. And I would always hang out in my room and have friends over. My parents always threw New Year's Eve parties every year, and we would drink in my bedroom and we would watch MTV. And I remember from that night falling down my steps because my room was the attic in our house. We had a really tall house and it was 3 floors, and the first floor was like the living room, kitchen, and the living room, and then it
This is
was my
is this in New Jersey or
New
Pennsylvania?
Jersey. This is New
I
Jersey.
can
This is New
literally
Jersey.
picture this house either way
Yeah.
because I'm from Connecticut. Like, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's my parents' bedroom, my brother's bedroom, my sister's bedroom, the bathroom. And then you go up these weird steps that like turn twice, and it was an attic that my parents converted into a bedroom when I was 7 or 8 because we had an exchange student for a year from Germany live with us. So they converted the attic into a bedroom for Christiana to live in while she lived with us. We're still, good friends with her, even though she's been back in Germany. We saw her about 10 years ago visiting in Germany. And
My fiance is exchange student Enrique. We're like good for that's like my boy. Like
that's
we're
funny that, yeah, we love Christiana. And
they're like part of the family in a way.
yeah, but when she left, I was sharing a bedroom with my brother, and my sister wasn't even born yet. And then Christiana left. My mom got pregnant, and then I took Christiana's bedroom in the attic, and that was my bedroom for the rest of, until we moved out of there. And so nobody ever went into my bedroom. Like, I can count on one hand the amount of times both of my parents went up to my bedroom. Like, they hated those stairs. So, and I remember falling down those stairs. Is probably the last thing I remember from Y2K was falling down the steps, and taking out somebody's legs at the bottom of the steps as I was falling down them. We were drinking kamikazes all night. Like, my dad would make kamikazes, but like not as the shots, but like he would make giant pitchers of kamikazes, and we would drink him out of like solo cups, and just, oh my God, my dad had a heavy hand when he would pour them too. So I blacked out on kamikazes that night. And yeah, that was Y2K for me. So was that your introduction to alcohol as well? Was being curious? Like, what got you
Yeah.
into, because like we both grew
Well,
up the same way. Like, how old
basically,
were you, and what was your intro?
I was in 7th grade, and what we started having was these dances. There was this community center in my town called the Outback, and like stuff that happened around this community center, like, when I say crazy, like this place was crazy. Like, I can't believe they even allowed this. But when I started drinking, it wasn't really to get drunk because I enjoyed alcohol or because like I was wanting to feel different. I just realized I was the only one whose parents weren't smart enough to lock up the alcohol, and that I would be cool and popular if my house became like the party house. And my parents are those parents that are like, we don't really care if you drink or smoke weed. We just don't want you to drive. So my house became like, I became popular because I had a bottle of vodka.
Yeah.
And I became like one of the popular girls, and all the popular girls would come get ready at my house for these dances. And that's when we started drinking before the dances, like a little pregame, I guess you could
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really like anything but innocent. We weren't drinking a lot. No one ever went to the hospital. No one even puked. Like, it just wasn't that extreme yet. But I remember doing it to be cool and popular, and realizing immediately I don't like alcohol.
Yeah. I can see it now. You're sitting around with your friends in 7th grade, and you're discussing alcohol and how, oh, I want to try it sometime, but my can't, because my parents lock it up. My parents lock it up, and somebody else says it. And then you say, you know what? My parents don't lock ours up. I can actually have you guys over, and we can drink at my house.
I'm like, well, you guys want to try vodka? Come on over, basically. And these
Yeah.
were the people that I wanted to be friends with because they were the coolest, prettiest people, in my grade.
Yeah.
And I basically did it just to fit in. It wasn't out of like enjoyment, or that wasn't,
Escapism.
yeah, that wasn't like a DOC yet. It was mostly just like, I want to be the cool kid.
Yeah.
So if I had a bottle of vodka in 7th grade, that made me interesting.
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of got my addiction was doing drugs as a way to be interesting to other people,
Your
because I
addiction
didn't
was
think
like the
I was.
attention.
Yes, I
You were
wanted to
seeking attention.
be popular, and I wanted people to know if they wanted something that I had it.
Now,
And
were
this
you getting attention at home being the oldest and with your dad having a demanding job?
I was getting attention, but not like I wanted attention from other kids.
Okay.
And also my brother had like debilitating ADHD at that point. So my mom was kind of hyper focused on trying to get my brother on like the right medication and manage that, because even though I think well, now I know because I'm diagnosed, had ADHD as well, it presents really differently in little boys than it does in little girls. So I think a lot of my mom's attention went to my brother, and it wasn't so much that I resented that, but I just used it as the ability to like steal a little bit more alcohol. I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, keep paying attention to him. Like,
Yeah,
that's
they're not
fine.
looking at me. Yeah.
Yeah, and my dad was, I love him. He's an amazing provider still to this day, but he was never home. I mean, there were years where he spent over 100 days traveling to other countries. So my mom being hyper focused on my brother's problems or whatever, like his ADHD diagnosis, didn't make me feel like I wasn't getting attention, but a lot of my behavior was able to kind of slip through the cracks inadvertently.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt the same. Like, not that my parents weren't paying attention to me. They had a young daughter and my brother, and it was, my dad
There
did
was
work a
just a
lot
lot of
also.
shit going on. We weren't
You
only
know.
children,
Yeah.
and both our dads had to work because we lived
Yeah.
in financially demanding areas. I
Yeah.
mean, if my dad had decided to spend more time with the family, we would have
Yeah.
had to move, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And I was a very independent kid. I don't know about you. Were you
very.
independent growing up? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't seek attention from adults
Mm,
like that. I just wanted to have like my own friend group. And even if my parents weren't giving me enough attention, I was seeking independence anyway. So it
yeah.
was kind of like that all came out in the
Like,
wash.
good, you're not paying attention to me. I can
Yeah,
do
I'm
whatever I
like,
want
thank
to.
God, finally, because honestly,
Yeah.
I was an only child for the first 3 years of my life, and
Yeah.
that was a little much. Like, my parents are both very competent, very like, when they focus their attention on you, it's almost overwhelming. So I kind of liked, when they were at least not worried about me, and I was
Yeah.
able to just like drink with my friends, go to these dances, have our first experience with like boys we liked and stuff
Yeah.
like it was a very exciting time for
Yep.
everyone and to be
Yeah.
accepted.
My mom said that she would be able to like put me down in front of like the TV and then not hear a word from me for hours because of how like independent I was. Like, you could just set me down and just walk away, and I was good. I could entertain myself. I knew how to work the remote control. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't need to be like hovered over top of in order to make sure that like I was being safe.
Yeah, my mom
Um,
was very much a helicopter parent and still is.
okay.
I've needed less of the parenting over the years than my brother, just
Mhm.
by design. I've been more independent.
Yeah.
And at that time my life was like really just kind of simple, because it really just was drinking. Like there weren't other drugs introduced until I was probably 16.
Yeah.
So it was kind of tame.
Okay. Now, was there a time that you felt that, because you said you didn't really like the alcohol, right? When did it progress in? Did it eventually progress into weed?
Yeah, it progressed into weed, and the funny thing about that is I also hated weed. For an addict, I didn't take to substances like a duck to water. It was very forced. I had to force myself to get to the point of liking drinking, and then I probably had to smoke weed 5 or 6 times before the first time I actually enjoyed it was. I
You just
really
kept giving it a chance.
Yes. Well, my friend just kept saying, well, the first time you smoke, it doesn't affect you. And then the second time, it like really affects you. You panic, whatever. But
Yeah.
my thing wasn't even using weed. Like, I was kind of a poser with the weed thing. Like, I made it a big part of my identity that I smoked, but I didn't smoke that much. It was, again,
Okay.
me trying to be cool. And at
Yeah.
the weed point, which is when I'm like 14, this isn't with kids in my own grade anymore. Now I'm a freshman in high school and I want the seniors to think I'm cool. So, like, what can I do?
Yeah.
Well, smoke weed and sell weed. And then, you got a boyfriend that's a junior in high school. And that's where my addiction started to kind of take off. The booze and the weed, if I had stayed at that, would have been fine because I never really enjoyed either of it. But on my 16th birthday, by that time I was smoking weed and drinking regularly. By the time I was 16, it wasn't a problem yet. I wasn't drinking to the point where I was getting sick or like missing school or like smoking that much weed. But my parents threw me a super sweet 16. Like, remember that show? They
Yep.
threw on like straight out of the show, but it wasn't on the show. And for my 16th birthday, a bunch of people got me cocaine as a present. And that's when I met my first drug of choice.
Oh.
That's when I was like, this is it. Yeah.
So somebody brought in, like one of your friends, they brought in some coke to your Sweet 16 party.
Because
so
at
walk me through this, if you don't mind. Like, did they walk up to you and nudge your shirt? Like, hey, look what we got. Like, how did this happen? Before the party, during, after?
Right in the beginning of the party, at this point, I had successfully infiltrated like the older druggy crowd and was dating, we can use names if they're dead, my boyfriend at the time, Evan, who is a big, common theme in this story. We're already dating. So his friend, who's alive.
And how old is Evan at the time when you're 16?
Evan's 18.
Okay.
So there are a bunch of like 18-year-old kids that are in their last year of high school at this party. So that's when kind of like the big league substances get introduced into my life.
Yeah.
So his friend, whose dad actually went to jail for selling cocaine at the community college like earlier that year. So I wasn't.
Wait, you can't sell coke at a community college anymore?
Apparently not. If you're the so yeah, he's like doing actual time for that.
Yeah.
But the kid of that guy had cocaine, obviously, and brought me like a gram of it as a gift and showed me how to like roll up a dollar bill, all of that. And almost immediately I was addicted to cocaine and I was off and running. And that's when my addiction took off. Like everything before that was literally just child's play, just me kind of doing it to be cool.
That was that was your like aha moment. The the AA will in their literature calls it the I have arrived moment.
I felt like I had arrived. I mean, I was in this beautiful dress. I was the center of attention.
But you enjoyed the attention, like we talked about.
I was on this drug that made me feel like, I could.
Untouchable. You're untouchable.
I felt untouchable and limitless. And, this all coincides with being 16. I think I'm invincible. I just got a new car. I don't think I'm going to crash it ever, like just that kind of false bravado that you have from the age of, say, 16 to 19. That on cocaine was crazy.
Did you just do that one line or did you do a bunch of lines that night?
No, I killed the bag and found the dealer that night. It wasn't like it wasn't like the other things where I had
so like you okay, so you went through it and you're like, okay, I need more now though.
Yeah, like, so by the end of the night, I had ascertained that one of the bouncers that my parents had hired as security of the party was a coke dealer, and that was my coke dealer for years after that. So yeah, that was in one night. It was kind of all off and running. And then
Sweet 16, you're giving cash. People are handing you cash for your birthday.
Oh, it was I mean, I was flush because my grandparents had already given me money. So I just realized I wanted more of this drug. And it was
had you heard of coke or seen it in movies before this experience? Like, what did you know about cocaine before you tried it for the first time is my question.
Not really so much what I knew, but what I thought was like cool people did cocaine because few R-rated movies I had watched, like the cool, epic, rich guy does cocaine. So
Blow.
I wanted to be that. Exactly. Blow. I still love that movie.
Yeah. But, so do I. I gotta say before we forget, the most ironic thing in the world, because I love that movie. It's a true story. I actually had this guy Larry on my show that I know personally from Massachusetts when I lived up there. He's an old head. He's got 30 years, and he used to buy his Coke in the 80s off of Georgiang because they're from the same area, Massachusetts. So he used to get his Coke pure from pure Coke from Colombia from the man himself from Blow. And obviously, the other biggest cocaine movie of all time is Scarface.
So we weren't allowed to watch a ton of R-rated movies.
Okay.
For some reason, that was like canon in our house. And now I know as an adult that by that point in my parents' life, for context, my dad had wrestled with a crippling cocaine addiction in the 80s and had been clean. Like when I was conceived, that ended.
Yeah, okay.
An ego death to him, but he will still watch those movies the way I'll still watch them now as an adult, as awesome pieces of cinema that I don't need to emulate in my daily life. But
the other thing I was going to say is the most ironic thing in the world about Blow is the director of Blow, a year after it came out, died of a cocaine overdose.
I don't know how I didn't know that. That's fitting.
I get his name right now. Something with a D. His last name is something with a D, like Demeshia or something like that. Blanking on his name. This is my 4th podcast of the day, so I'm not great right now. But no, his name is Timothy Dolemont. Now I gotta find it just how to use it. Passed away. You got to get his name right.
That just shows me like how sad that idea.
Ted Demme. I was right. Timothy D. Ted Demme. Demme. He passed away January 13th, 2002. Blow came out April 6th, 2001. So 8 months after it was released, he died of a cocaine overdose.
He was probably so flush with cash.
Yeah.
I mean, like I remember feeling very targeted by people that sold that drug, Coke. I remember feeling targeted by them because they knew I had money. After my parents threw that party, everyone kind of knew, because when we were really young, my brother and I, we didn't have that much money. And my dad had been like tirelessly climbing the corporate ladder. So when my brother and I were in high school, that's when we really made our money. And it was like a big moment for my parents. But it also, even in a rich town, put a spotlight on me. Like,
so like other kids knew that your family was doing well. So let's hang out with Natalie because Natalie's going to have the drugs.
Yeah, Natalie's dad had such a good year. He's in the New York Times. So we better, all be around her. And, it wasn't like they cared if I got addicted to something. That was probably ideal for a dealer. I always remember thinking, wow, if I had me as a client, I'd never screw that one up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure how often, because at 16, you're a sophomore in high school, I'm assuming. I don't know when you're born. Like I was a
sophomore in high school. And it was my boyfriend Evan's senior year. So that was when I went to like senior prom. And by this, like, freshman year of high school, I was like a baby. And then sophomore year of high school, I became pretty much what you see in front of you, full on adult. Like full on, driving myself places, fully functioning coke habit. And I maintained the idea that I was a stoner, but that was just a cover. Yeah. Like I don't care about that anymore, but parents weren't as threatened by that. So I knew to mask my addiction as me just being a pothead. And that people wouldn't really trip out over that.
Yeah, you don't want to lose friends with their parents being like, oh, they can't hang out with Natalie because she's like, bad news.
She's a bad influence. So I hid kind of like the harder substance of cocaine behind just, I'm just a cute little girl that likes to smoke weed, So people still think that I like love weed, but really, or like loved it, when I used to use.
Yeah.
But it was a cover the entire time.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense now. How often and how much would you say in a week while going to high school were you spending on coke?
Oh God.
On
Well,
average, you know, the like,
it's hard
or if
to
you can think
know.
of the biggest week ever, that's fine
It's
too.
hard to know because a lot of times I would like trade. This was back when pills were still what they really were supposed to be. It was like a little bit before the advent of pill pressing, at least where I'm from. So a lot of times I would trade because I was prescribed Xanax for my generalized anxiety. Like I would trade other drugs for that because I was kind of
Okay.
afraid
Yeah.
of pills, and I have always had a healthy fear of pills.
Because if you're 32 now, that means at 16, it would have been like 2009.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
yeah,
About
breast
oh
pills
eight,
weren't
oh
even a
nine,
thing. It
that
was
year.
more like Oxy was huge around then, and
Yeah,
Xanax.
like for example, if I went to my grandparents' house, I'm cleaning out their medicine cabinet, but not
Mm,
for me to
yeah,
trade it for my drug of
yeah.
choice. So
It's like
that's
that movie. It's like that movie. Well, not exact, but um, when that kid was selling pills at school, and his dad was Robert Downey Jr. Or no, the principal of the high school was Robert Downey Jr. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I
No?
don't
Okay, either
like
way. It came out around that time. Um, I'm surprised. No, we got it. I gotta get to the bottom of this. Luckily, we're not in a rush because this is gonna bother me.
that
Is
time of my life, like before pills were laced, the lunchroom of my high school was like the most beautiful open air drug market. Like it would it would make any using addict's day, what was
oh
going on in there. A lot of kids were prescribed a lot of different stuff. So
yeah,
there
that's why I'm thinking of this movie, and it's I don't want to look at the name because it's gonna piss me off when I see the name. But it's the name of the movie is the kid's name. It's like Travis Barkley, but that's not the name. It's I'm looking. I'm a Robert Downey Jr. now. The main kid, Charlie Bartlett. Damn it,
yeah,
you were 14 when Charlie Bartlett came out, and I don't know if you ever heard of Charlie Bartlett, but here's the description: a rich kid becomes self-appointed. It comes the self-appointed psychiatrist to the student body of his high school, and he
to
would get
the
all these
point
drugs
where
from. Yeah,
people will call me, like, still some people call me Dr. Natty as a joke.
yeah, yeah. He would in the movie. He would go into the stall, the bathroom, and kids would tell him what was wrong, and he would tell his psychiatrist what was wrong, and just get handed meds all the time. And he had all these scripts, and he would be the psychiatrist in school. Kids would say, "I have this, this, and this. All right, take 3 of these," and blah blah blah, and like be selling pills individually to people all day long, and just making money hand over fist.
That was my
Um,
friend. I wasn't that kid, but one of my best friends, who honestly killed it in life. Like he literally directs movies and has two beautiful children
oh
now.
no shit, that's
But at
awesome.
that point, like he had a really, really crooked shrink. So he
Okay,
could get whatever he
yeah.
wanted. And that was like when I tried a bunch of different pills. I didn't get addicted to them, but I definitely tried them. And I
Mm,
just look back thinking like that was so unsafe to mix
yeah,
that all with the underlying cocaine I was doing.
yeah.
I'm really lucky I'm okay. And I'm more lucky that I was too scared to try opiates because that's when that blew. My addiction was never noticed because around 2009, also in my friend group, it warrants mentioning, my like a really older kid, like a kid that had already graduated high school, got his wisdom teeth out. And there was
Mm,
a parking lot that we would all hang out in and smoke weed and like trade other drugs and stuff like that. And I remember he came up to my friend group and held out his hand, and there were blue M30s in his hand.
That was my
And
DOC right there.
and I watched 5 people meet I watched their eyes light up the way mine did when I did my first line. And to the point where I was like, whatever that is, I'm cool, because I watched it like, and these were all pretty much like pothead kids and overnight opiate addicts. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's what. Yeah, I
all
was a
got no
pothead.
breaks.
I was a pothead for 9 years, 13 to 22, and then October 2008. I think it was October 17th is the date I figured out. If I narrowed it down, it was a Friday night. I don't know if you know this, but back then, before elections, like coming up to an election, I got to clean my piercing. It's bothering the fuck out of me. Coming up to an election back then, the borders would really get constricted and confined. So you don't have as much weed and you would get a drought. We would call it a drought.
Oh yeah,
So this
I do
was coming
remember
up
that.
to the election of 2008 with Obama, and there was a drought, and I couldn't get weed anywhere. And I worked retail, and very demanding retail job. I was a manager at Best Buy for a long time, and it was just a lot of work. And I would love to just come home and just smoke some weed and relax and watch my movies. And that's why I can reference movies to like anything, or TV shows, like literally the name of every episode of my podcast is the one with, the one where, the one when, because of Friends.
Yeah.
And we've already referenced a bunch of movies in this episode. And so I couldn't get weed. And my friend DJ, I can say that because he passed from this disease. Well, I was buying weed from him at the time. He was over my apartment because I was the first person to get an apartment at 20 years old. So everybody would come over to my apartment to drink and smoke weed because everybody else lived at home still or lived in dorms or whatever. And so people were all going out that night. I had already turned 22 like 2 weeks before then, and I didn't feel like going out that night to the bar, but everyone still came over to pregame. And I was like, yo, D, like, you got any weed I can buy off you? Any chance you have any weed? And he's like, nah, man, like, all I got is this. And he pulled out a bag of Perk 10s. And I had done them like 4 times 1 week. There was like a week vacation with a bunch of people where we went away, and I did them a lot that week. But that was it for perks, at least. And I did like muscle relaxers and shit in high school. I was more of a drinker and a smoker in high school. But so I got these 2 Perk 10s, $20. I was like, yeah, I'll buy 2. My rule of thumb with drugs is just buy 2. Ecstasy, I did the same thing, and all these other drugs, just bought 2. And so I bought 2 off them, and that was my arrival, was that night. Nobody was in my apartment. Everybody was out. It was just me and the TV in front of me. I had this ridiculous surround sound system because I worked in the audio room.
Oh yeah, Best Buy. So
yeah, I worked in Magnolia. It was a high-end audio video room. So I had like 50% discount, like, you know what I mean? Like the equipment I had in my apartment was like a movie theater. And I just would sit there, and I was sitting there that night. I was like, this is it. Fuck weed, fuck alcohol. This is what I've been wanting. And the next night, I'm like, you still got some of those left, dude? He's like, yeah. And then like eventually, like 5 days later, he's like, I don't got any more of my script left. You gotta get somebody else. Like he said, give Black Lou a call. And I'll say his name's Black Lou. That was his name. I'm not being racist. He was like the only black dude in town, but he told everybody to call him Black Lou. And I can say his name because he passed from being an alcoholic. And he would hang out at the bar between opening at 11 a.m. until about 7 p.m. And then he'd go home for the night and then sleep and then wake up and do it all again. And he's like, give Black Lou a call. He has them. You can get them from him, as consistently. I said, okay, cool. Called up Lou. He's like, no, I just ran out of them. All I got are the 30s. I'm like, oh, damn, I love the 10s. He's like, dude, they're $20 a piece. He was like, so you can get 3 of them for basically for $20 and you can snort these ones. I was like, ah, okay. All right, I'll come by. And then I went and grabbed them. I didn't snort them the first time. And I was like, holy shit. And then next time I saw him, he's like, did you try snorting them? I said, no. He said, do it. You're going to see a big difference. And then, fuck, I was off and running.
I remember watching, my boyfriend at the time and all my close friends go through that. And what really freaked me out about the whole perk thing was it made them sick. Like it
Yeah.
made them vomit the first couple
Yeah.
times they did it, but they still wanted more. And
More.
I remember thinking like, I just had such a ominous feeling about it from the beginning, and I truly believe that if I had gotten caught up in that, we would not be having this conversation because none of those people are alive. Like everyone that I can picture taking the blues out of that guy's hand, they eventually, when those pills went up in price, became heroin addicts.
Heroin addicts. Yeah. Yeah, I believe it. It's something about those. And I'm not trying to, um, like romanticize that pill, but that pill doesn't exist anymore. It just
Well,
doesn't. It's fentanyl.
there's something weirdly romantic about it. I don't know. And I've only experienced this through people close to me, right? But the
Yeah.
way they felt about that pill is a kind of once in a lifetime, almost first love feeling
Yeah. It
that
was.
I only understand because I remember being the high school girlfriend and being less
Mhm.
than that pill.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe it. It was one of those things that I can't describe. Like the feeling, and yeah, the withdrawal sucked. And I eventually had to start selling them in order to, support my habit. But, it became worth it to me, which is fucking crazy to think. But okay, well, back on into your story. We're going to keep chugging along. You're getting through high school. You're doing a lot of coke. You're trading Xanax for coke. You're making trades. Are you working a job yet, or you didn't have to work a
Yes.
job?
So at this point, I always had to have a job because my dad, even though he had enough money for me not to have a job by this point, wanted me to understand like what
The value.
the value of money, basically.
Yeah.
So I literally always had a job. Um, and then I was also like selling weed. So I always had like a retail job or a job as a hostess. Those were like the two kinds of like jobs I would flop between,
Yeah.
you know. And I liked it. I liked working in restaurants because everyone that works in restaurants does coke. Maybe not
Yep.
so much
Yes, they did.
anymore,
They did
but
then.
in like 2009, 2010, like high school going into college, I loved working in restaurants because there was just always someone, with my DOC that I was
Yep.
working with, or like the manager or someone.
The
So
busboys, the waiter, everyone. Somebody had coke. I mean, it
yes,
was that
everyone.
simple.
And so I always wonder if they're ever going to do some sort of expose on like how much cocaine there actually is in specifically the restaurant part of the service
Yeah. Oh my
industry.
God, it's
Um,
ridiculous.
because
Know
it
it.
was just super normal. It's like everyone was doing it. We would do bumps to get through our shifts because
Yeah.
the shifts were crazy, and my parents were fine with me, working crazy hours, and I was making good money.
Yeah.
So all through high school, I worked, made good money, and then I got into when it was time for me to apply to college. I Googled best college in the United States for cocaine use, picked that school, got a presidential scholarship, and went.
What school was that?
Rollins in
What is
Florida.
what school was it?
Rollins College, and right outside of Orlando, Florida.
So that school in particular had the biggest reputation for cocaine.
And just partying in general. Just
Okay. All
an
right.
amazing party
I didn't know
school.
that. I never
Yeah,
heard of it.
yeah, it's just it has a reputation for being that kind of school, and I knew I wanted to be a part of Greek life, wanted to be in a sorority. So I picked that school and went to it. And it was really nice to like escape Connecticut and be in a
Mhm.
tropical environment because I'd been cold my whole life. And with my chronic Lyme disease
Yeah.
illness, the doctor said it would be better if I went to college somewhere warm. So that just kind of like all worked out for me. And I remember the summer before I went into college, I made the most money I ever did, like in my young life, selling Cutco to my parents' rich friends, like the knives.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I pretty much realized like my dad has built this network of people he works with. They all have a ton of money. I can guilt trip them into buying Cutco off of me. And then like by that time, I had enough money to really support a pretty crazy
Yeah.
cocaine habit. By the time I'm in college, I'm doing a gram a day.
Yeah. Which is $60 a day, $40 a day.
Free to me because I'd figured out how to save my money by an ounce. And this is when I start getting involved with sketchy people, not just like sketchy people I grew up with, but like actually scary, like South Floridian face tattooed,
Yeah.
like gangster
Yeah.
gangsters.
Yeah, because you're freshly from Connecticut, down in Florida where nobody, I'm assuming,
I mean,
and
I
you're trying to
knew
buy an ounce of blow, and this is 2010, 2012, right?
2011.
2011.
I
Yeah.
graduated high school in 2011, and
Okay. Yeah.
at that point, I'm able to maintain my habit. I'm happy. I'm skinny, so everyone thinks I'm healthy, even though
Did you
I
have to go through withdrawals ever, like from 16 till then, because you were just maintaining a habit the entire
no,
time?
I never stopped doing drugs. Like
Yeah.
I up until I got sober for clean for a year, I did at least some kind of drug every single day for my
Yeah.
entire. We figured out it was 17 years straight.
Yeah.
Um, Even if it was just weed, I
Or
still count
drink. Yeah.
that. I was still
Yeah.
doing something every day and not in like a moderate way at all. Like I wasn't
Yeah.
even trying to just like if I didn't have blow, I would drink a ton or smoke a ton of weed because
Yeah.
those are like my fillers.
Yeah. That
And
was, I can
in
relate totally.
college, it's super socially acceptable to drink, smoke weed, and do coke. So I didn't have to hide any of this from like my friends.
Yeah.
They were all cool with it. They were all doing the same thing. Most of them are clean now
Yeah.
because no one died somehow. Like that group of kids, everyone's alive. So
Mm.
a lot of people are clean, obviously.
Yeah. And so this is, 2011, and you're in school. What were you going to school for?
I'm studying psychology and sociology simultaneously and really getting a lot out of my academics, like loving the academic side of things. But the coke addiction is like creeping up on me at this point and starting to become a problem. And meanwhile, while I'm doing this in Florida, back at home in Connecticut, things are really falling apart because of the perk things. That's why I mentioned that earlier. 2011, like I went to college fall of 2011, came home, New Year's, Christmas. It was crazy. I'm still messing with my high school boyfriend, Evan, dating a guy in college named Brad, who's also a drug dealer. And then on that winter break, I finally got to hook up with the ultimate drug dealer from my hometown, who I could say his name because he passed away shortly after this. But his name was Kevin. I'd been like obsessed with him since I was 13 or 14 years old. And we finally like had a fling. Meanwhile, I'm cheating on two people with him. But still, it was like I was so happy that we like hooked up over Christmas break. And then unfortunately, he didn't die in like a overdosey way. Even though he was a heroin dealer. At this point, everyone's off perks, everyone's on dope. Like, that's what's going on. And he's the dealer. So Evan like owed him a bunch of money for something, and I said I would pay him for Evan, and I never got the opportunity to do so because he died in a house fire, like just randomly. And this is my first homie that I lost. I remember, and it had such a profound effect on my mental well-being. Like, college was going so well, cannot stress that enough. Got into the good sorority I wanted to be in, Kappa Gamma A. They got kicked off campus because of cocaine. But it was a good, like, those times were great.
Yeah.
I got into the best sorority because I made my dad pay my way in. I was doing well in classes, and then one day I remember, like it was yesterday, I was going to smoke a cigarette after I had just done a bunch of coke, and I was going to go smoke a cigarette and then go to class. And my friend Hannah called me, and this was the friend that I'd basically lived with in high school when my parents started getting annoying because her mom was like unhinged and like hooking up with this really like older guy. So their house was just open all the time.
Mm.
So that's where we would kind of meet up. And because my parents wouldn't have been cool with us doing like coke and like kids are like smoking perks at this point. My
Yeah.
parents would have flipped out. So we realized like, okay, like let's go to a house with no parent.
Yeah.
That's
When did you start smoking cigarettes? Because you mentioned cigarettes.
Oh, okay. When I was 13, the kid
Okay.
that I had the crush on, like, probably would still have a crush on if he was still alive. I mean, come on, this guy was like so cool. He started buying me cigarettes when I was 13, and I didn't like cigarettes at first, but I liked
Mhm.
him so much, and I wanted a reason to talk to him.
Oh, okay.
Addicted to cigarettes eventually.
Yeah.
So at this point, my whole coke addiction, cigarettes go with that really
Yeah.
well. So it was kind of like, and I was like the parliament smoking girl. That was
Yeah.
part of my identity. And meanwhile, I'm like,
Which parliaments and cocaine go together because of the recessed filter for anybody that doesn't know.
yes, yes, exactly. So I would have, those packed to the brim so I could kind
Yeah.
of like walk around with that and it didn't look as weird. Unless, of course, you know what's going on, in which
Yeah.
case, like, you also are probably holding. So it was
Yeah.
fine at that time. But I remember walking to go smoke a cigarette, and Hannah called me, and I couldn't even understand her because she was so upset. And what had happened was there had been a random house fire at like Kevin's friend from college because he was going to college in upstate New York, and he was trying to save all the people from this house fire, and the house collapsed on him. So I had to go home for his funeral, and that's when things with the addicts in my life just started getting really bad. Like, my on and off boyfriend, heroin addict, was like, who's going to sell me heroin
I was gonna say their
at
dealer's
his
gone.
funeral? They were freaking out because they didn't know how to get to the supply chain. So
Yeah.
it caused like it caused people with less of a good conscience to become heroin dealers, and then some ODs down the line.
Yeah.
But that was like the beginning of the end of that friend group. And I remember doing a lot of coke to cope with the fact that I had lost my first. Like, this is a kid that I'd been like hooking up with a couple weeks before, and now he's
Yeah. He's
like,
gone.
it was hard for me to even wrap my head around. But that kind of soured that first, year of college. And I remember after that happened, my boyfriend at the time was like, you can either stop doing drugs or we can break up. And I was like, cool, I never liked you. Like, that was the easiest. Like, I didn't even have to. That was the first instance of someone who cared about me trying to tell
Yeah.
me like to chill. And I was like, okay, never
Well,
talk. Like, I was
this
fine.
isn't gonna work out with us anyway then. If you can't, this is me.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. And he was like, even if you just, moderated it and like just stop smoking weed. And I remember I lit a bowl and blew it in his face and was like, literally leave. Like, because I was going through it. Like, I was upset. My friends are addicted to heroin, and I didn't think cocaine and weed was bad because I'm meanwhile to this dude, I wanted to be like, bro, I'm not even using it. Like, you don't know what drugs are, basically.
Yeah.
But it was out of concern, I think, in a well-meaning place.
Yeah.
But yeah,
what did that first summer look like then when you went back to Connecticut? Now everybody's hooked on heroin and that dude's gone. Like, what was that like, especially with you and Evan?
A mess. I'm just trying to convince Evan to stop doing drugs. Evan is unsuccessfully trying to work a Narcotics Anonymous program. This leads to me believing that Narcotics Anonymous is exclusively for people who shoot dope, and kind of cementing that as my understanding of NA for a long time. Like, until this time around, I didn't think that anyone even got clean off weed, for instance. Like, I thought if it was something that's not going to kill you, it's not a problem. Because of how many friends I had lost or whatever. And all the people doing that were in and out of NA, trying to get a few weeks here, a few weeks there. So I remember my whole thinking was that this program isn't effective. But really, it is. We're in the trenches of the opioid epidemic.
Yeah.
So it's less that, like, the program.
With not a lot of information either. With not nearly as much information as they're out there today.
Exactly. So, and this is still 2012. So this is like the pill era of the opioid epidemic, not the fentanyl era yet. So I just remember thinking like, oh, that program doesn't work. But really, it was just that their addiction was on a very, very strong level.
Yeah.
Because from 2009 to 2012, these people have graduated from perks to H and stuff like that. So I just remember, like, even though I was deep in my addiction, I was always one of the more straight edge people in my group because I didn't do that stuff. And I remember thinking, like, I'll be okay as long as I never do that.
Yeah.
But I wasn't.
And you're going back to school and you're doing coke still. How are your grades going? How's
Oh shit.
School?
We're
good. I got you.
Now.
Yeah. Okay, no, you can see. Okay. Did you? I was asking if you graduated college.
No. This is where things start to take a downhill turn. It wasn't like immediate that this happened, but it happened over like the next 2 years. Like, I did stay at college for 3 years. So I did finish most of it. But this was the advent of social media, right? So Instagram becomes a thing. I make an Instagram of basically drugs. Not basically, like literally drugs. Like, so much evidence of my drug use that it's comical. And they find this Instagram, the school, campus security, finds my Instagram and realizes this is, fast forward 2 years into the future. Same stuff's going on. My friends are all addicted to heroin at home. My friends at school do coke, party, drink, but that's it. And then they find my page. And
is your name on it?
Yeah, Natty K 420. They found that page. I still use that screen name for things I can't figure out how to change it. So they find that and they're like, you can either, because I was on a full scholarship too. So the first thing they did was yank that away and make my parents pay. And then my grades didn't improve. So that's going like poorly. And then they find that Instagram and they're like, you can either tell us your supplier or you can leave. And my supplier at the time, I'm not even going to tell you who it is now. That's how scary this person is, okay?
Yeah.
You don't, and where I'm from, like, you don't snitch on
Yeah.
people. So I was like, that's not an option. So
Yeah.
I packed up all my stuff and moved to Colorado because by then I'd gotten like one ticket in my hometown for smoking weed. And this was when weed was still like super illegal in most of the
Yeah.
country. So if I had gotten caught two more times, it was either, so I was done with college, like that chapter was over. I
Yeah.
withdrew on a medical leave before they could boot me, but that was over. And I really wanted to go work in the weed industry in Colorado. So I just went and did that. And the only good thing that came from that geographic change was I did get clean off coke finally, just kind of like by myself. No program. It just was making me sick. It wasn't sustainable anymore.
Yeah.
And like I was starting to have dental problems because it was like dissolving my teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I moved to Boulder, Colorado. This was before people just like did this too. So
Yeah.
it was really interesting. And my parents didn't want me to get in trouble for weed. So I started growing it like for a dispensary, got a license, could pass background check, all of that stuff. And that was like what started my life in Colorado, which was a new era of just, basically smoking. And that lasted until summer of 2015 when my friend started ODing on heroin. And that's when I started using like not perk pills, but like any pill that wasn't an opioid, basically.
Yeah.
So that was a new chapter of that addiction. Oh, also, just to mention it before I forget, there was one time in college when I accidentally did my DOC instead of Coke because they look so similar. And
Yeah.
I hated it. And I vowed, to never do it on purpose and all this stuff. And I wish I'd I did stick to it for years, but I wish I'd stuck to it forever because that
Yeah.
would have been
Did
good.
you move back to Connecticut like with Evan?
No, I never did until 2015. Then, that's when I should have graduated college, but I just ended up coming home for a summer and that's when he died. So,
Yeah.
I remember one of the last things he said to me was like, whenever you come home, like bad things happen. It was so awful the way that whole thing went down. Yeah, so then I was so traumatized by that I moved back to Colorado and stayed there.
Because he died July 15th.
Yes, in 2015. And then
Which you and I, for people watching, one of the things Natalie and I learned about each other early on is Colleen, my first fiance, that was my childhood best friend. She died from a suicide on July 13th of 2015. And then 2 days later, you in your life lost your long-term boyfriend from an overdose.
yep, and we'd been on and off boyfriend girlfriend for like 8 years and we actually don't know if it was an overdose or a suicide, but since there's no way that I will ever know, it's just kind of like it's a moot point, I guess. But that was when I was really like, for years after that, I was definitely afraid to do hard drugs.
Yeah.
So I just stuck to weed, and my addiction kind of like masqueraded again as me just being a pothead, but this time that's all I was actually doing.
Did your family know that you were doing coke?
A little bit, but not to the extent. Like
Your brother?
I would joke about it. My brother knew, and because he knew, he moderated his own use of it.
Okay.
I would like, if anyone tried to sell my brother a pill or a powder, I would beat their ass. Like I
Yeah.
was wild in high school and I loved to fight people and everyone knew that. So no one would sell like that kid could barely get weed. To this day, he could probably barely get weed. But after 2015, I was like off hard drugs for a while. And then in 2018, I discovered nitrous oxide, which is a really weird drug to get addicted to. But oh boy, that was when I realized like, even if you've never done an opiate, you can fall into addiction
Yeah.
because I got really, really addicted to whippets like on and off from
You know
2000.
they're being sued right now, right?
What?
You know they're being sued right now.
I'm not surprised. It caused
There's a
neurological damage.
there's a massive lawsuit against a bunch of companies that sell their canisters at Walmart and at smoke shops and stuff like that. I'll send you the thing to see if you qualify. I
Oh,
haven't.
class action. Yeah. Well, the issue with it was like with the prolonged use is it made it so like I used to have really good pedidexterity. Like I used to be able to pick stuff up with my feet. And I lost that ability for like 4 years because of nitrous. And I know a girl, I don't know her personally, but I know a story of a girl in Louisiana that got really addicted to it. So it's illegal in Louisiana because
Yeah,
if you don't know this, whippets can take your ability to walk.
yeah.
Luckily, that didn't happen to me, but I have a lot of friends that still live in Denver that have some degree of motor dysfunction due to abusing nitrous. And it was crazy. The first time I had it was at the dentist. I went in for a routine teeth cleaning. And for some reason, they were like, do you get nervous about the dentist? And who likes the dentist? Like
I
that's a
know.
loaded question.
Yeah,
So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take it. But then I realized you could buy it at smoke shops. So it became like that was my first real battle. Like Coke was my first real addiction, but in the shock of Evan's death, I quit Coke, cigarettes, and drinking all in the same day and just stopped. And I still haven't smoked a cigarette since then. Like I think it made me make a big change and that was good, but unfortunately like I did get addicted to other things because I never treated the center of what was at my addiction. I would just
yeah,
try and move to a different state, switch drugs, switch doctors, stuff like that.
yeah.
And yeah, nitrous next to ketamine is the hardest drug of choice I've ever quit because the psychological, like there have been really dark things that have happened. Like I fought my mom over it. My mom, who I love so much, tried to take my whippets away and I rocked her. Like that is probably one of the darkest moments I'll ever experience.
She
Like
was visiting you in Colorado.
yes, and tried to take, and I wasn't doing like cartridges. I was friends with people that could get me 50-pound tanks of nitrous. So my mom tried to wheel the tank away from my bed and I attacked her.
You had it next to your bed.
Yep. Just sitting all day, just watching shows, going into psychedelic ego death. But hey, I'm not doing perks, so I'm good. Like, it's just so ironic to think about. I never considered myself an addict until I was told in a clinical setting after telling someone pretty much everything I've just told you that, I've been an addict my whole life. But yeah, the nitrous was really let everyone except me know that I had issues with addiction.
Did they know that it was that bad with you and nitrous until your mom came
No,
to visit?
absolutely not.
Your mom. Did Did you know your mom was coming to visit?
Yes, but what had happened was I finally wasn't able to like work a job and maintain the facade anymore. The facade cracked.
Okay.
So as soon as the facade cracked, my mom instantly flies out. We get in this fight, but thankfully somehow I get sober again. Like weed, Cali sober. I'm smoking weed, but I'm not drinking still since Evan died, because whenever I would drink, I would look for hard drugs. I still believe to this day, if I had a drink, that's what would be the input. I knew that about myself. But the nitrous got me really badly. And then again, to kind of get away from that, I was like, I'm done. You know, it got really bad during the pandemic again. I like quit in 2018. And then in 2020, I had another go round of addiction with that, because I mean, I hate to blame it on COVID, but that's what led to me not having a job to go to, right? Because my restaurant job went away.
Yeah, where were you living at the time?
In Denver. I'd moved from Boulder to Denver by this point, and I was selling a bunch of hash oil, the building I lived in, until the world shut down and I went through another round of nitrous addiction as a result of me just being like absolutely insanely stir crazy.
So you haven't lived in your hometown since you graduated high school, basically.
No, I haven't. I guess when someone tells you bad things always happen when you come home and then they die, you don't go home that much. I very recently have decided I want to move home, but that's only after getting clean.
Yeah.
That would not have ever been a possibility for me without getting clean, because
and having a support and a program and plans, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I just, when I was in my active addiction, I was always looking for the next party.
Yeah.
So that kind of, we're almost to curve for the nitrous having that addiction happen. I finally quit when I throw my prized possession, which was a $40,000 bong, into the wall during a freak out. I'm friends with a lot of glass artists that are really talented, and there was there was a big spike in like how much glass cost, and I had a lot of money because I was moving a lot of different drugs and working a real job, so I had a good amount of money. Spent a lot of it on glass, and was a wake-up call when I broke my prized possession, because I would go into these like rages when I would do nitrous. So I stopped doing that and stayed stopped again until I met my ex-boyfriend, 2 ex-boyfriends ago. That's how close we are to current day. He saw what I was doing processing weed for this company in Colorado, and he moved me to California to process it here to do nitrous, right? Because that's the thing that makes the wheels fall off for me. And unfortunately, he owns a head shop. So good luck trying not to do something when there are pallets of it that know of addiction with that in 2023. But after Burning Man, I was able to get clean and stay clean for a little bit. And then we broke up because of just like differences in lifestyle. Like, I have no hatred towards this individual. Like, he's my cool ex. Like, if I still smoked weed, I would still get it from him. Like, we're fine or whatever. But then I met my abusive ex, who introduced me to my real DOC. And the interesting thing about ketamine is it's like if you could snort nitrous.
Okay.
So, so I've this addiction to like dissociative psychedelics for, I don't know. I mean, I'd honestly had tried whippets in college, so probably over 10 years at this point. And then I realized ketamine was like if coke and nitrous had a baby. So I loved it. I was obsessed with it. Festivals and stuff. And when I first started doing it, a bump, like the end of my fingernail, could get me gone in a K-hole for hours. And then by the end, I could like, you know, someone's entire bag for a weekend was like one line to me. And I still think that when I see people using it at music festivals, I'm like, that's adorable. Like that's your whole bag. Like that's adorable. But yeah, he introduced me to that, and then we had like abortion thing because he got me pregnant and I wouldn't have kept the kid anyway. I'm totally in favor of abortion for any reason, but this time it was medically necessary because it was an ectopic pregnancy. So it was in my doctor told me, like, if you don't basically, you know, take this pill and end your pregnancy, you could become infertile. And so I thought it was pretty cut and dry, right? Take the pill, feel sick for a couple days, but he is from this weirdly religious background where science doesn't really matter, I guess. Yeah. So he thought I was a murderer and became physician because of something I had to do for my own safety. He drank an entire bottle of Crown Royal and just beat me almost to death in my apartment. So that I still live in. It's all good. I saged it. But that's when I realized that like things weren't good between us, and I coped with it by doing more and more and more ketamine because he was a psychedelic stealer. He would sell ketamine, molly, acid, and weed, which is technically a psychedelic if people don't know. So I would just kind of do more and more to cope with how badly he was treating me. And that just made our relationship more dysfunctional. We ended up getting into a throuple with our best friend, our mutual best friend, who they actually just broke up. They still like do their weird, you know, active addiction song and dance together. I don't know a whole lot about it because I'm so far removed from that. And they broke up recently over differences because of drugs. I imagine he owes a lot of people a lot of money by now, but the way I got out of that relationship was I just couldn't keep up with his drug use because I have a chronic illness. So I can't do molly, acid, and ketamine. Like I was still a full-on K addict. Like I like doing it at my house, but I didn't want to like go to festivals as much as he did anymore. So he broke up with me, and I met my current fiance on Twitter, actually. And we, when we first dated, were just addicted to different things. And we would do each other's drugs sometimes, but it was Vyvanse, Adderall, and God, he's never tried meth because it'd be over. Love it. But I don't really like stuff like that. I like more ketamine, downer. Like if I have to, a Xanax, I guess. It's not really recreational. That's more of a prescribed thing for me. And I've never done it more than I'm prescribed because the things I've seen people do are just like
I'm not too
I wish your wasn't like the average, pretty much Xanax story, but at least you didn't burglarize a Walgreens. I mean, aside from that,
I've burglarized the house.
Yeah, I never wanted to get that out of control.
Yeah,
I kind of thought,
I'll tell you what happened. This was 2013. I was house sitting for a guy at work that was my manager. Very good friend of mine at the time. I used to house sit for him and his wife all the time. We worked at Best Buy for years together. We know each other for like 5 years at this point. And we spent a lot of time together working and outside of work. Instead of going there all the time and let his dogs out when he would go on vacation with his wife, I would just go there and I would just stay there for a week and just take care of the dogs and, just go to work. And like I usually would go to work and he would pay me and, whatever, fill the house up with food and pay me. And, I was cool with it.
My parents do because they have a dog and they travel a lot. Yeah. So they have a woman named Michelle who's just like basically a part of our family. Yeah. She's our house sitter and she like does that. Like she gets mail, make sure that
well, the last time I house sat for him, and this is the last time, I was bad on Xanax. And I had just gotten a fresh script, and I was out of 30s, and I needed to make money to buy 30s, and I was trying to go away to make money to buy 30s, well, very, very high on Xanax. And I don't remember exactly the process, but I do have a very faint, because Xanax is a mind eraser. You know what I mean? Like, fuck everything you just did. You don't remember anything. I have a vague memory of going through the jewelry box.
Oh, no.
And I have a very vague memory of being at the pawn shop. And Colleen was with me. And then I remember parts. I remember 3 different parts to that 45-minute drive home, because that's when I was going home for the last time, and he was arriving home the next day. And I got into 3 car accidents on the ride home because I was so fucked up on Xanax. Then I bought my pills, whatever. And
fender benders because the car kept going.
They were fender benders the entire time. Yep. And got like the next day about everything and just didn't answer his texts. And just wasn't answering his texts. And I was living in my parents' basement at the time, and I wasn't working at Best Buy at this time because I was so fucked up on drugs. And he didn't know that when he asked me to house sit for him. He just knew I wasn't working at Best Buy at the time. And I wasn't heard them knock on the door. I heard them ask my dad for me, and my dad, called me up, and I was already high, like on pills, like whatever, on 30s. So I wasn't withdrawing, and they arrested me. And I remember thinking, well, at least the police station's right around the corner. But no, it was the police station in Acco where he lives that was arrested.
Oh, that makes sense. So
I had to be handcuffed. My hands behind my back, handcuffed. They didn't handcuff me in the front. They handcuffed me in the back, and I had to be handcuffed in the back seat of the cop car for a 45-minute car ride.
Jesus. Yeah.
But in the meantime, it bought my dad time to go, and my grandmom at the time had just sold her house down the shore, because this was a couple of years, like a year after Hurricane Sandy had destroyed, like, September 2012, September 23rd, 2012, my mom's dad died. October 10th, 2012, my dad's dad died. And then 2 weeks later, Hurricane Sandy fucked up both of their shore houses.
A horrible.
My grandmother,
remember how bad that storm was, and like so many of my good friends' parents had like houses that lived out there. And it was really bad. Like they pretty much all had to go into nursing homes after that.
Yeah,
because
my both of them sold their houses. Both of them, you know, my grandmoms had just lost their husbands. You know, like my mom's dad died on my mom's dad died on my dad's mom's birthday. And then my dad's
parents close together. That's grandparents.
Well, my grandfather's within 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's
yeah. They both came home from hospice on the same day in September. They both went home to their houses down the shore where they both retired. Both grandparents retired down the shore. And so it was great summers for me going down the shore to 2 different shore houses. Never had to go down the shore. My mom's dad passed away on my dad's mom's birthday, September 23rd. And then October 10th, 2 weeks later, is my brother's birthday. And then our dad's dad died, who my brother was very close with, my dad's dad. He died on my brother's birthday. And then Hurricane Sandy was like 2 weeks later, destroyed their houses. Their houses get fucked up. Like,
yeah, 40 years or longer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true, like, because this was 2012. Yeah, you're right, because
these people were probably born in the
my mom's parents got married in 1961. So yeah, they were together 50. They were married 50 years. They were married 50 years, 51 years, whatever you want to say, 52 years when he died. And my Aunt Sandy, my dad's sister, is 4 years older than my dad, so she was born in 58. So that means they were already married in 58. So they were married over 50 years when my dad's dad died. You're right, yeah, over 50 years.
Yeah, their whole lives, because back then people got married in their late teens, early 21, and he was like 23 or something, and they were married for 50 years. So they're in their 70s.
Yeah, it's crazy. That whole time was, you know, and my best friend died in a car accident. She died in a car accident. Like my best friend growing up, and
a lot of death to the point where I don't think you can realize how that's affecting you in the moment. Like you can only look back years later and be like, that year was fucked.
Colleen and I started dating October 3rd, 2012, right in the middle of all that. And yeah, the June 12th is just a fucked day because June 12th, 2012, John died. John Johnson was his name. And the name of my first studio was John Johnson Memorial Studio. And but June 12th, 2023, my dad died. My dad and best friend both died on the same day.
I did not know it was the same. I knew it was around that time. I did not know it was the same day. That's crazy.
I woke up on June 20th to the day that he died. And then 3 hours later, my dad died. Yeah. Crazy.
I hope nothing ever happens on July 15th again to me. That would be crazy.
Yeah,
but
it's
I don't know. Sometimes higher powers. And that's why it was interesting when you hosted the meeting with the format of the questions. My favorite question was, how do you stay clean when close to you die? Because that's something that I haven't been through yet. But I really aspire to stay clean through, because whenever I don't stay clean when someone died, my life goes, has made me think a lot, like, of how important that would be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, and people that don't know, we do NA together and we host meetings together twice a week. Thursday night I host a speaker meeting, and Natalie's my co-host who does the screen sharing, and some people from our home group come in and speak to this meeting, and we share on the speaker. And then on Saturday nights, I do a topic meeting. I host, and Natalie's my co-host, and it's usually a topic night where I come up with a topic and people share on the topic. And last night I wanted to try a different way where I had people send me questions in the chat, and you were allowed to share for a minute and a half, which I might change to 2 minutes. Get next time I do it. Maybe I'll do it next week. We'll see how I'm feeling. But people sent me questions in the chat. I didn't break out anonymity who asked what, and I would ask the questions, and we go around, and people would answer the questions. I don't know. I thought it went pretty well.
I thought the word would be groundbreaking. Yeah. I mean, I think we broke new ground. I'm just happy to be, whenever we do something that feels new in recovery, I'm always just so glad to be a part of it. We impressed our predecessors. That's like one of our
our mutual friend, with no hair. I know this way I'm not saying his name. After the meeting, he said that I was bringing new life into the meeting with that.
Yeah, I've never seen a format like that.
Neither have I. Most it just came in my head.
And I could tell even people that have been clean for 30 years were like super engaged with the format.
Yeah, we're gonna do it again next week, I think, because I really enjoyed how it went, and the fact that people with some time were like, even like kind of like meetings go, like, this is different, and I think
it's important. I just think it's interesting because in telling my story, I realized my whole life revolved around addiction until it didn't. And when I got into recovery, I made that my whole personality, because my sponsor said, you know how you've always chased, the heart, and it's I've almost caught up on all the arrested development of that 17 years in 1 year. Like, I was able to bring someone else got drunk at the wedding and ruined it. It wasn't me. It was awesome.
Wedding clean. My brother's wedding clean. My dad died to see me clean. And it's a good feeling. To be. I was my brother's best man. I was able to give a best man speech without like being blackout drunk and not knowing what I said.
Yeah, I was my brother's wife's maid of honor, and before I gave the speech, one, I'm clean, sober to normies, but two, that's crazy. Like, I was like, if you mix that with alcohol, you can die, right? Like, I gave her a whole life.
Yeah, do you want me to black out? Like
bad do you want this to go?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, you black out completely.
Yeah, I actually am good at taking my Xanax as prescribed, because if I take more than my prescribed dose, I can't, it's not sustainable. So people always say, they're like, how are you prescribed that as an addict? And honestly, I have my mom send it to me 1 week at a time, and it's very, very carefully controlled. And my doctor's not someone I can manipulate.
Yeah. See, do you know about my Xanax from last November when I relapsed. It's almost been exactly a year since I relapsed.
I mean, I know how it ended.
Yeah.
With you obviously joining our meeting part of it.
I had just quit smoking cigarettes, and like for the first time in a long time, I just quit smoking cigarettes. I was using a patch.
At this point, like
yeah,
so you even quit cigarettes.
Weed,
okay.
I had quit weed earlier that April.
Because you quit weed before 420, and then
I quit Valium. I was having after my dad died June 12th, 2023, and then in July of that year, I went back to work because I was out of work for a month when my dad died. You know, I just needed time off, and I was actually out of work for 3 months on FMLA leading up to it, and then the entire month of June because of how sick my dad was. I couldn't work. I couldn't sleep. I was just that was it. But even weed wasn't putting me to sleep, no matter how much RSO I used or whatever. Like at one point, I had a pretty bad addiction to RSO. I will admit that. Like it was pretty crippling. Like I was using like way too much RSO, and I was just a zombie of a person.
Yeah, edibles have always given me panic attacks.
No, not even panic. No, I was just like, it looked like I was like nodding out almost to the point, like on RSO.
I could see that. Yeah, I remember because honestly, I worked in the legal.
Yeah, I know. That's why when I say RSO, I know you would know what I was talking about.
Yeah, we used to give that to cancer patients.
Yeah,
because it's one of the only things that can help you if you're in like an end stage.
Yeah. So I used to go through
a painkiller.
I used to go through like a quarter a day of RSO.
Wow.
And I was just straight up, I would buy 100 case, a bag of 100 empty capsules. And I would open the capsule up, and then I would first I warm up some water, put the RSO into warm water to kind of break it down, make it less hard. And I would inject the RSO because I was buying the injectable RSO. I would inject the RSO into the capsules, the empty capsules that I had, and I would make my own pills.
And like capsule filler, and and then you sell it. That's like a backroom dispensary job that I've had.
Yeah, no, I was going through like a quarter of RSO a day, easily, and
yeah, that's more than like someone dying of cancer would have to.
Yeah, and that's so much. And then I stopped. I was smoking weed all day, every day, and then my dad passed, and weed wasn't cutting it, and I got my psychiatrist give me Ativan, and I was taking that as prescribed for a little while until I wasn't. Within like 7 months, I started using the Ativan, just taking it way more than prescribed. Then I told my psychiatrist this isn't working.
Oh yeah, my grandma went through a whole. That's physically addictive too, because it's a benzo. So
well, then I learned.
I hate people tell drugs because that advice could actually kill someone.
Well, then I learned that you can use Valium intranasal.
I didn't even know that.
Which means you can snort it and get high.
Yeah,
because Xanax, if you snort Xanax, it doesn't make any difference. If you snort an Ativan, it doesn't make a difference. But if you snort a Valium, holy fuck, it makes a difference. So I started snorting my Valium. And then it got out of hand. Obviously, if I'm snorting my Valium, it got out of hand. So I quit everything April 1st, 2024. Quit weed, and I was like, you know what, I'm quitting weed too. So that's April, and then November, 7 months later, and we're 7.5 months in, and I'm like, all right, time to quit smoking cigarettes. Using a patch, really on edge. Holidays are coming up. Dad's on my mind. This sucks. All this shit, and message. Do you use my chart?
Yeah,
Everyone uses my
yeah,
chart, right? Yeah. So I got on my chart.
yeah.
Got on my
My
chart.
doctor's like community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So I messaged my psychiatrist on my chart, and I said, "Hey, this is what's going on in a really bad spot." And I said, "No, it's not strong enough. I can't do it. It's not going to be strong enough." And he was like, "All right, I'll give you 1 milligram Xanax and 90 count 3 a day." I said, "All right, send it in." So we send it in. What's that?
Crazy. Also, 3 a day is crazy.
Yeah,
Like,
it was gone in 4 days.
In a body my size, you take that as prescribed, you're in a blackout for
I was in a blackout
probably.
for 9 days because I went through that 90-day script in 4 or 5 days.
Wow. Yeah, that's really, I'm glad you're alive. I don't know. I know it's hard to overdose on Xanax, but I know that would be an overdose.
But then, because that's the reason, that's 4 or 5 days into my 9-day relapse. But then I messaged him. I said, "Hey, Ryan," because I called him Ryan. His name's for anyone watching for practice, Dr. Ryan Solwanowitz. Yeah,
don't go to him.
He's worked with this guy singer. Anyway, so I said that wasn't strong enough. The script's gone already. Like, they're gone. That wasn't strong enough. And instead of him saying,
"Where are you going?"
Maybe
to? Which is what my psychiatrist would say. He'd be like, "You can pick. You want
it was all right. I'll give you 2 milligrams then this time." So the bars instead of the footballs.
Yeah. I literally get scared whenever I see those pills.
I went through 50 in 4 days. 20 of them in 12 hours.
That just shows.
That was when I overdosed. That's when I overdosed.
Yeah, you're the only person I know that's ever actually overdosed on Xanax, because most people
die.
Yeah.
Throughout the day, I worked 7 to 6:30 that Tuesday, December 3rd, my mom's birthday. I woke up. I drove a half hour to my podiatrist, who was the first time meeting her, and she's a saint. I love her. And it's my mom's birthday, I think. Yeah, it was. And then I drove home. I clocked in at like 10 a.m. And this is all not something I have any memory of. I just know that I went to the doctor's. I worked from 10 to 6:30, and I was taking 1 or 2 bars an hour while working on the phones, talking to patients, taking 1 or 2 bars an hour. I did NA.
The level of functionality.
What?
All of that. I'm surprised at how functional you were through all of it. Like,
I started smoking cigarettes again by this point. And I worked take 1 or 2 throughout the day, every hour, and then I got done work at 6:30. And I'm as you know, I'm off on Wednesdays. You're long enough. I'm off on Wednesdays, so I'm like, well, it's 7 o'clock. It's Tuesday, so I might as well just get fucked up because I'm off tomorrow. So I started using it in excess, like 2, 3, 4 an hour. Lay down in bed, not fall asleep, get up, go into my stash, grab a few more, get back into bed, watch TV, and then it's like, I'm not asleep yet. Get up, take a few more. And that was my night, the entire night. Go outside, smoke a few cigarettes, go back inside, yeah.
And then at what point did your significant other realize what was going on?
Mikey woke up at like 6 and saw that like I was a zombie and I couldn't form sentences in the apartment. It was hidden underneath my trash bag in my trash bathroom, my trash can bathroom.
Oh, so that's why they got so mad, because you were not like openly like, oh, I got this script. It was
they didn't know I had a script. And in our apartment, we have 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. So right now I'm in the third bedroom, and like that's my bathroom. Mikey uses the bathroom that's attached to our bedroom, and our son uses the bathroom
Yeah,
attached
you
to
all
his
have
bathroom.
your
So I have, like,
space. That's
the
easy to
little waste basket in my bathroom, and I figure no one's going to root through the underneath the trash bags. So I put the script underneath the trash bag in the bathroom, and I was so, I don't know how I did this, but Mikey told me that I walked willingly onto the ambulance.
But you don't. But you just blacked in a psych ward, right? Yeah.
Well, I woke up. The only thing I remember that Wednesday was the pain from them putting with the cat, giving me a catheter. That woke me up.
That'll unblack out you.
That'll wake you up. That'll wake you up when you're a guy. And
luckily,
yeah,
that
it's
hasn't
not
happened
pleasant.
to me yet. But I can imagine it's the most
And I didn't know Mikey was at the
do.
hospital, and I admitted to taking Xanax, and then I got home from the hospital, and Mikey had found my script because I had said it in a blackout where it was, and they, flushed it. I give it to me, because I went.
Well, because
Yeah, he wouldn't give it to me. I asked my mom if I could move in with her. She said no. Brother said no. Mikey and I fought more because I wasn't done using. I didn't think. And then I woke up Thursday and I started to work. And about an hour into work, I was like, "What the fuck am I doing? Like, this isn't how it's supposed to be." And I put myself on like break in my office, like on my work and on the call log. I put myself on break, and I said to my kids, like, "I'll go to the psych ward, but I'll go to the psych ward, and I'll get this figured out." And it was like, 'cause I want to stay and I want to work it out. And they said, "Okay."
So, psych ward, like, kind of how, like, me, did you make a plan of, like, how you were gonna stay clean and stuff like that? Because me and a doctor and a woman doing H&I all making a plan of, like, what my recovery would look like, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I had to go to the hospital and say I was going to kill myself for them to admit me to a psych ward.
Yeah, I got lucky. I'm not going to say I got lucky and that I was covered in self-harm, but I had really needed to be in a psych ward for probably since my ex had beat my ass.
Yeah.
Like, I had really needed that help for a while, but it sucks that that's what it took. Like, a cop visually seeing that my clean date and my, remission from self-harm date are the same day. Weird how that works.
They well, they wouldn't say, because where I was going to admit to the psych ward was the same hospital. I was just that yesterday, the day before. So they were like, basically. Yeah, they're like, "We have to put you on a Barbitol, whatever the fuck it's called, taper, so that you don't die from Xanax." My clean date, in the hospital bed, in that hospital, just laying there. Mikey wasn't talking to me. My best friend wasn't talking to me. My friends weren't talking to me. Like, my family weren't talking to me.
I don't think anyone besides addicts knows that a lot of times at rock bottom, no one is talking to you. Like, my rock bottom, my parents not talking to me. They had to pay $5,000 to get me out of jail. Like, know what, and a lot of my friends that had kind of been able to put up with my shit until then dropped me.
Yeah.
When I hit rock bottom.
And then like the whole time I'm expecting to go to the psych ward that's on the 4th floor. It's called 4 North, and that's what we call it in town. Is the psych ward in town is the north side of the hospital, and I had to open in 4 North. And I'm so tired. I need a cigarette so bad, and I'm so tired of being in this bed. The nurses feel bad. They know how bad I need a cigarette, and they know how much I've been begging them to let me go outside and smoke a cigarette. And they were like, "Finally, we have a bed open for you." It was a Sunday morning, and I'm like, "All right, I'll go into it." They're like, "It's not here." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Where is it?" They're like, "Philadelphia." I'm like, "It's 2.5 hours away."
Yeah, I was about to say you don't live in Philadelphia.
And I was like, whatever gets me home the quickest, because I want to get the 72 hours over with. I haven't even began my 72-hour hold because I've been in the hospital the whole entire time. You know what I mean? So now they released me to go do my 72-hour hold. Well, like I said, the nurse is like, "Well, you'll get to finally smoke your cigarette before you get driven down there. What happened? They take you to the psych ward." And I said, "Okay, cool." And this guy comes up, and he's like, "All right, let's go." And I said, "All right." They said I could just smoke a quick cigarette before we go. Constable, that's what he is, a constable. And he goes, "No, you're not smoking a cigarette." I was like, "What?" He's like, "No, I'm not letting you smoke a cigarette."
Violence. So it's like you're transporting someone to a psych ward. Like,
and he's like, "Give me your backpack and turn your phone off and put your phone in the backpack." I was like, "What?" He's like, "You can't have a phone in the psych ward. And from the second on, you're at the psych ward. Put your phone, turn it off, put it in the backpack."
Even though you're not physically there, yeah, they would.
I'm 2 hours away, 2.5 hours away. So I'm like, what? Like at this point, like everything is shattered in my head. Like, what the fuck is this happening right now? He takes the back seat of the car. It was basically a cop car, and we drive. There's cameras all over it for in security purposes.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Fuck it," and I just fell asleep the entire ride down. Like, if you don't want to talk to me, don't let me have my phone. I'm just gonna fucking snore in your back seat the entire time. Psych ward sucked. There was some people that I met there. There's a guy that's been on my show. Me and him are still friends. We're from the same area. We got to admit it, around the same time and let go at the same time. We actually drove home together. In this ward will take you home, and him and I left and got released at the same time, kind of orchestrated it that way. And him and I took the same drive in the same van back, and we both couldn't stop talking about getting able to smoke a cigarette. And he's an alcoholic, you know what I mean? He's an addict. He's a meth addict, but he's also an alcoholic. And he was in there for alcohol. And him and I were just fish out of water in this place. So we became good friends. And he lives in the next town over. His where he was going was the next town over from me, which is so random, to happen to land in Philly.
Of the middle of nowhere to be both.
Yeah. And it was really cool. Let them take breaks and they would pull over on the side of the road, let them get out and smoke cigarettes. And my dude was just Mr. Employee of the Month. And on the ride back, the guy was cool as shit. He stopped 3 different times for us to smoke cigarettes. At one point, I ran out and he let me go into a gas station and buy them. And then we would sit there and just smoke a couple and get back into the van shit. But no, the way down there fucking sucked.
There for not addiction related issues. They were in there for mental health, and no one spoke English except it was all Latin. I was very much in the minority, and that's why I didn't even stay for a full 3 days, because they were you will be targeted.
Yeah.
For being white.
Yeah, no, Matt and I got along really well. We're still friends. His clean date's December 5th also. And so we talk all the time, like on Messenger and whatever. And yeah, it's great because we were the only ones there for addiction. Everybody else was in there for another reason.
Yeah, I was the only addict. Everyone else in there was in the middle of a mental health crisis, and they were trying to like figure out the medication.
Yeah.
And in order to be picked off the street in no, because you've been here, but it was all the people that weren't even allowed to be outside on Skid Row, inside a facility. And I actually am working on getting cleared to do H&I there myself, because you never know how many addicts slip through the cracks into the mental health system.
It's what in AA it was 6 months to do H&I, I believe.
Yeah,
or 3 months.
I've been able.
No, I did H&I, so it was 3 months.
I've been able to do it for a while. It's just you have to like figure out how to actually get on the panel.
On the panel,
but I just can't wait to be able to go into one of those places, because I actually have been always a cutter.
Yeah.
Also, that's like a separate thing, but like kind of ties into addiction.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that too, actually, if you want to have time for that.
Of course. Yeah. My parents had me institutionalized the first time they ever saw me do it. So I did have some experience with an institution for like 3 days when I was 16.
Yeah, and H&I, for those watching who don't know what H&I means, let me say it means hospitals and institutions where AA or NA, both of them have the same thing. They go into a psych ward, they go into a rehab facility, they go into a hospital, they go into a prison's different, but yeah, it's the same. They go into a prison and they'll hold meetings and talk to people that are in there for addiction. I did it 4 different times when I was in LA. 2 were at rehabs, 2 was at a hospital. I just happened to meet an old dude, like an old timer in AA, that like kind of took me around all over West LA for all these different H&I conventions. So, but to do H&I to psych ward is different, especially one that you've been at. Now, I don't want to say I have a fascination. Like Colleen was a cutter, and one of my best friends was a cutter. And I'm always curious, how old were you when you started cutting, and how did you find out what cutting?
I think just through honestly experimentation. Like I didn't know that it was a thing other people did. I thought I was like unique, but the reason I did it was because I had so much emotional pain, and like making it physical for some reason helped me. So it was years because of like underlying psychological issues, and I was never able to stop until I got clean. There's just something about being clean, even off weed, that gave me the peace of mind to like fully think through my decisions, because I would always regret doing it. Play the tape through until I was clean, and I get outside help. I do psychology therapy once a week, and then I meet with my psychiatrist once a week. And this is like the longest time I've ever been able to go without having that happen.
Yeah. That's. So you didn't know that it was a thing. How old were you when you first started doing it? Then you remember how old the first time you did it? 13.
Yeah.
And was it with your nails, or was it with like an object?
Tweezers. And because tweezers aren't that weird of a thing to like have on you. Like no one would ever think like, oh, we better take away the tweezers. But yeah, the reason I remember doing it was my grandma died and my dog died, and my 8th grade boyfriend all cheated on me in the same. It was a bad week. So years in between doing it, but it would just be like little episodes, and it followed me for my whole life up until I got clean.
Always with tweezers?
Yeah. Like the tweezers that have a sharper point.
Yeah. Yep. So that's, that's a whole addiction. Like it's a whole addiction within itself, is self-harm.
Yeah, the way it releases chemicals in your brain feels like drugs.
Yep.
So whatever, that's just. And my parents put me in like a really nice institution to try and get rid of that and do drugs with. I mean, it was a bunch of troubled kids.
Yeah, I know somebody very well. Her first time cutting when she was 11 was the first time she was raped. That night she cut.
My friend that was sexually assaulted when she was 9, also, by like the older brother or cousin of a friend. Yeah, I know that's common. That didn't happen to me until college, though, and I definitely did deal with it in that way. But what happened was I got way too drunk, Xanax, and I didn't know. So I was at a party and someone had poured an entire script of bars into the punch and not told any of us. So everyone at that party blacked out. Like I can barely even, the kid that did it, like I have some animosity that went to that party.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you were assaulted that night?
And I only remember like very little of it because, like I said, someone put a whole script of bars into our punch, which I totally thought was just like normal alcohol.
You know who it was? That no, not that.
Yes,
like
I
that
do, and he's assaulted a couple of my friends, unfortunately, as well. It seems to be like a serial, it's definitely not us that are to, like, he assaulted 3 girls in my sorority, so, and he's been to jail for that and stuff like that. Like it's a repeating thing, unfortunately.
It's something that is not like. Now, did you like blame yourself at first for drinking alcohol and like thinking you would put yourself in that position?
Yeah, I blamed myself because I didn't realize like that I had been drugged until about a week later when everyone was talking about that night, and we all realized that like we'd had maybe 1 or 2 cups of the stuff and then blacked out, which for a bunch of seasoned binge drinkers is super not normal.
It's not. Yep.
Because, like, for instance, we did a keg race against a fraternity. Yeah.
But keg races. I remember those days.
That was something that like you did as a freshman getting hazed. So it was weird that we could drink a whole keg, but then 2 cups of punch, and we're all like, we don't remember anything. It was very weird.
Yeah. I remember doing keg races in high school, senior year and junior year, doing keg races. And it's just the last time that, I've had a few last times of drinking out of control, like a lot of alcohol. And because like I went to the hospital when I was 16 for alcohol poisoning. I drank a 5th of Bacardi in 10 minutes.
That happened to my little sister. It was really scary. Like at the Outback, how I told you where we would have all those dances. She was the little sister of one of the girls I always partied with, and we were like, "Stay away from us. You're 1 year younger than us." Like, basically, so she had to be like medevaced out of the alcohol poisoning.
No, I took down a 5th. Like the bottle, the entire big bottle in 10 minutes. Like when I say 10 minutes, I mean I was timed. I got to the party late, and um this was back when the Nokia phones, all they had was like Snake and a timer on there. And my friends were timing me. At one point I chugged like 27 seconds, bottle straight. I had to be carried out. We were in the woods, and it was like where a bunch of people used to bike and like do ramps and shit, like when biking. And they rolled me on a piece of plywood and carried me out to the street where where the ambulance was gonna pick me up.
I'm glad that they got you help, at least.
Well, yeah, my cousin was there. My cousin was there. They called my cousin. My cousin came there and saw me and called. And they weren't calling. My cousin called. And I definitely held resentments for a while sooner. Anyway, so my dad brought my 13-year-old brother to the hospital to see me that night, and it scared my brother from not drinking for a long time. So
yeah, that would definitely be really scary.
Like you were saying, like right in the very beginning, 2 hours ago, like you said, you made sure you taught your brother lessons about things. That was my brother's lesson at 13 years old. And my parents learned a lot though too, because I never hold anything to my parents, because they're it's from the 80s and 90s. Like there wasn't like a playbook on this. You couldn't Google shit. Like with me, they were very strict on, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. And then so I just rebelled against all of it, and I went out of control. They were like, all right, you and your friends can drink if it's in our basement and they're sleeping overnight. Then you guys can have some drinks in the basement. My mom's like, I'll buy you some beer and you guys can drink and have a sleepover in the basement. And that's my brother and his friends were like, okay, cool. And that was what my brother did in high school for drinking. And then my sister was like, all right, you can have a party, but we want to be home for it. You can go to a party, but you're keeping your car here. And if we have a party here, I'm collecting keys.
Yeah. That's yeah, and because of that, neither me, my brother, none of our friends have gotten DUIs. We would all just like sleep. We had a big basement, like unfinished basement, where kids would just sleep on air mattresses or like whatever, rather than them get behind the wheel. That's one thing drunk ever, because a lot of, I think that was an issue in the 70s and 80s, drunk driving. Not that it still isn't an issue, but
it was huge car accidents, like everything. It was a really bad problem. One of my favorite times ever, I was living in my parents' basement, and my sister was like a senior, so this was like 2013-ish, and my brother and my dad had bought land in Arizona. They bought like 45 acres of land in Arizona, like just on a whim. And they rented a minivan and they drove out there to go, camp out on their land for a week. And I remembered my dad telling my sister I was in the basement high, and I heard 100% a party going on. And I went upstairs, and my mom's like, "Don't say anything. I'm letting Jess. You gotta help me." I'm like, "Help you with what?" She's like, "Collect keys, make sure no one's doing anything bad outside." I'm like, "Whatever." So we sat there on the porch. It was just chain smoking high, and just collecting keys. I would do rounds in the backyard and making sure everyone's like, not fucking going crazy. And it's just that was a fun. And eventually my dad found out. He laughed about it, but they were fun. But it's been now the record. I just checked. We are the record now for the longest episode ever on this show. So there is one though that actually we were going this long. We were at like 2 hours and 20 minutes, out of this. And I said, okay. And then 2 hours and 20 minutes later, we're like at 2012 in her story. And she's like, I got an appointment. I was like, I got therapy. And I was like, all right, we'll finish this in a couple days. And we wrapped it. And then we did part 2. And that went an hour and a half. So it was 4 hours almost altogether between part 1 and part 2. And she's like, I don't think we're going to get an hour. And we got 4 hours out of it. So it is always a pleasure chatting. I'm sure
it would be a lot, but it's nice to, get it all out, talk about it, and hopefully, anyone that's battling any kind of addiction realizes that they're not alone. And, there's a lot of people that want to help. And I really want to watch the Eagles game.
Yep, tonight. We got 3 minutes till kickoff. So, yep, as Natalie just said, well, go Birds.
Go Birds.